Welcome into Chicago Bears Now. I am your host, Harrison Graham. You guys know the drill. Mailbag coming soon. Use hashtag Bears and then ask your questions down in the comment section. It could be draft related, free agency related, whatever it is. I will answer as many questions as I can. Got to comment now, though, because we're going to be filming very, very soon. Use hashtag Bears down in the comments. Now, we'll start today's episode of Chicago Bears Now. Mitch Trubisky. This guy has been the center of discussion for the last couple of days at the NFL Combine. Of course, all the teams are there, the head coaches, the GMs. You guys know how this goes. And Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace both have talked and answered questions regarding the quarterback position in 2020. Is Mitch Trubisky the guy? Obviously, after the season, they both backed him, say he's the starter in 2020. Pace, for the most part, doubling down, saying we believe in Mitch, but he also said that no decision has been made on whether or not they are going to opt into his fifth-year team option. Here's the quote. We believe in him. We're going to support him. We're going to be better around him. But I think competition brings out the best in everybody. So could the Bears be bringing in some quarterback options to compete with Mitch Trubisky? We'll get to some options I think could be on the table later in the show. But I want to ask you guys this question. Do you believe in Mitchell Trubisky? Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. And when I ask this question, I'm saying, can he be the guy that leads this team on a deep playoff run? Is there enough around him? Can he spearhead this team? That is why I am asking. If you think he can, type 1 for yes. If you don't think he can, type 2 for no. Now, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI. You may not be confident in Mitch Trubisky, but you should be confident on making bets with BetDSI and betting the over on the Bears' 8 wins next season. Look, if Trubisky is just marginally better, the Bears are going to win at least 9 games. You can bet on it now at BetDSI, chatsports.com/bet. Use our promo code NFL120. You can also bet on the XFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball. It's all on BetDSI. Get that 120% deposit bonus. Now, if Trubisky's going to be the guy and if he's going to prove he can be the long-term answer, we got to build on 2018 and just flush 2019 because he just wasn't very good last year. He dealt with the left shoulder injury. I get that was probably part of it, but clearly wasn't comfortable rushing as often, ran for over 400 yards in the 2018 campaign. He's got to utilize his mobility. I think that much is very, very clear. Now, I want to get Matt Nagy's quote on Mitch Trubisky in comparison to another quote from Ryan Pace. Here's Nagy. For him, I think the processing part, it has to get to a point where you're so obsessed, no matter what you're doing, you're always watching film. So that kind of sounds a little different from what Pace said the first time. And Pace also says something that we'll get to here. I think he's accurate. I think he's athletic. He can process his work ethic, how he is as a teammate. Now, Nagy just said that Trubisky needs to work on processing information and being in the film room and doing the studying stuff, the pre-snap stuff that it takes to be a good quarterback. And then Pace is saying, which we all know Pace, he loves Trubisky, traded up for him. Oh, I think he can process, he's athletic, he can do all these things. A little bit of both can be true, but I think we would all agree that last year Trubisky, he was slow on his reads. If it wasn't there on the first or second read, he got into trouble and he forced some bad throws and made bad decisions. He has to process information quicker. He has to understand what defenses are doing, and he's got to get the ball out faster. That's what Nagy is saying. Him and Pace don't quite seem to be on the same page. So I'll ask you guys this. Who's more likely to be gone in 2021? Because I don't think Pace is going anywhere. I think he'll be with Chicago for at least the next couple of years. Type T for Trubisky, type N for Nagy. Who's more likely to not be part of the Bears organization after 2020? Go ahead and let me know down in the comment section. All right, Bears fans, we're over 3,000 subs, trying to get to 5,000 by the end of March. The month of February is almost over, so here's what you do. You hit the big red button. Plus, we've talked about quarterbacks all off season long. I've done QB trade targets video. That's up on the channel, youtube.com/BearsNow. Tons of draft coverage regarding the quarterback position. I'll bring up some draft options in just a minute. Also, 3 QBs the Bears can target. That's up on the channel. The latest rumors, the latest news, free agency coverage. We're going to have you guys covered all off season long. youtube.com/BearsNow. Let's keep the channel growing. Let's get to 5,000 before April. Now, real quick, before we get back to the quarterback discussion around Trubisky and some possible guys the Bears can bring in for competition, these are confirmed visits so far as the NFL Combine is ongoing. Jake Fromm, speaking of quarterbacks, he met with the Bears. Van Jefferson, the wide receiver out of Florida, who, by the way, has a fracture in his right foot. He will not be working out the rest of the way. That one per Adam Schefter. Gabriel Davis, Bryson Hopkins, Dalton Keene, and then 3 offensive linemen as well. Logan Sternberg, Charlie Heck, and Ben Bartsch. These are the ones we know for sure. There's probably a few others that haven't been released publicly, but these are some of the early combine visits for the Chicago Bears. Now, Ryan Pace mentioned that competition is good for Mitch Trubisky. Matt Nagy even said competition's good for everybody. Nobody should be comfortable. And I think that's the approach you should have when you're a team that underachieved last year, and that's the reality with the Chicago Bears. So these are 3 options, in my opinion, to create competition for the Bears. Drafting a quarterback in the second round. Jake Fromm, Jacob Eason, Jalen Hurts, I think, are some options. I think the second round is too rich for Hurts personally, but some teams feel differently. He could go as early as round 2, but Jake Fromm feels like maybe the most likely here because he's already met with the Bears. He's been mocked to Chicago a lot, and he played with several of these guys in college. Riley Ridley, Javon Wims, they are Georgia graduates that he played with in the past. He also played with Roquan Smith with Georgia as well. And he fits into that kind of range of where the Bears are going to be drafting in the middle of the second round. That's where most people believe he will go. I think Fromm is somewhat of an option for the Bears. Now, I'm not a big Fromm guy. I've been clear about that. I don't like his inability to throw the ball down the field, but it seems like the Bears tend to like him. They've got Georgia players. I think that's a possibility. A couple of other options that we talked about. Jacob Eason, I'm more in on him, who ironically played at Georgia to start his career before transferring to Washington. He's got a stronger arm, more upside in my opinion. And then, of course, if you want to go with the more mobile dual threat route, Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's a round 2 guy. Maybe you trade down and you can get him in the 3rd or 4th round. I don't love him in the 2nd round, but I think those are some guys you can look at if you want to take a quarterback in the 2nd round to bring competition in for Mitch Trubisky. You put the passing stats side by side. Obviously, Jalen Hurts' numbers a little bit inflated in Lincoln Riley's system, but we know what he brings as far as a rushing standpoint as well. Ran for over 1,200 yards and 20 touchdowns this year at Oklahoma. Eason and Fromm a little bit up and down back in 2019, but obviously Jacob Eason with great upside. Now, should the Bears draft or sign a quarterback? What do you guys think? I've asked this a few times. I've gotten some mixed results. I want to ask it again. Type D for draft. Type S for sign. If you think they should draft a quarterback, type D. If you think they should sign one, type S down in the comments below. All right, option number 2, and we've talked about this as well in the past. And again, these 3 options are to create competition. I'm not going to talk about Tom Brady because if you bring in Tom Brady, he's the starter. How about sign or trade for Andy Dalton? I think you bring him in, he competes with Mitch Trubisky. Now, I tend to think that Dalton, if you bring him in, would probably win the job and be your quarterback for 2020. But at the very least, he's a guy, hey, Mitch, we're bringing in Andy Dalton. You got to earn this job in this season. I think that's a good option. I don't love the idea of trading for him because he has a $17.7 million contract for this season. I think there's a good chance he gets released, though, and if he does, you can sign him for probably more of that $9 or $10 million for 2020. I think that's good value for Dalton, the guy who's played for a long time in Cincinnati. Say what you want about him. He took the Bengals to 4 straight playoff appearances. Not many people can say that. He's got familiarity with Bill Lazor, the new Bears offensive coordinator. I think a lot of dots can be connected there. We'll see what happens on that front. Now, Bears fans, I looked up on my phone this morning because we're based in Dallas, Texas here at Chat Sports. I checked my phone, I was like, man, I wonder what the temperature in Chicago is. 28 degrees. It's pretty cold, so why not get yourselves a Bears hoodie? Chatsports.com/Bears hoodies. By the way, This Khalil Mack one, pretty good deal on that one. Chicago Bears, I like this all-orange one. Very flamboyant there. I think that's a good option as well. Chatsports.com/Bears hoodies. Best deals out there on all of these options. We'll have the link in the comments and in the description. And another guy to bring in for competition, if you don't want to just bring in a guy to take Trubisky's job, is Marcus Mariota. Ironically, could he be the Ryan Tannehill of 2020? And what I mean by that is you bring him in, he pushes Trubisky, but ultimately Mitch gets the job. He's your week one starter. But if he struggles, you've got a guy who has similar attributes, who's mobile, who's played a lot in the NFL, and maybe he sparks your offense if things don't go well with Mitch Trubisky. I think that makes some sense. I think that's an option. I don't think he'll be that expensive either. In most years he would be, even though he didn't play that well last year. But this year, I think he won't cost a ton because there's a lot of big-time quarterbacks available, guys. Tom Brady, Cam Newton might be available via trade. Teddy Bridgewater's out there. There's a lot of options. Mariota may not get a big contract, so he might just want to sign a one-year prove-it type of deal, compete for the starting job. And hey, if Trubisky doesn't play well, he is ready to go. Now, we talked about Dalton. We talked about Mariota. Pick a quarterback. Who would you rather Chicago bring in for the 2020 season? Type A for Andy Dalton. Type M for Marcus Mariota. If it's the guy who I think gives me the best chance to just win, I think it's still Andy Dalton. If it's someone who you want to compete with Mitch Trubisky but not necessarily take his job, I think that's more of Marcus Mariota. But go ahead and cast your votes in the comments section. Regardless of how the Bears do in 2020, how this all goes, Mitch Trubisky's under fire. He's got to bring it this upcoming season. There's a reason the Bears haven't committed for his fifth-year option. I think they're split among this franchise. Look, Ryan Pace likes him. He traded up for him. He believes in him, and he can keep saying stuff like that, but ultimately he's going to have to prove it on the field. It's been inconsistent. We'll see what happens in 2020. Again, these are some options to create competition, as Ryan Pace would say. You draft a quarterback in the second round, you sign or trade for Andy Dalton, or you bring in Marcus Mariota.